You guys know what this represents?
Fellowship.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Give us a hint on your answer.
Thank you, everybody.
You'll find out. Of course you will. Soon enough. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Just Our Take episode number 70.
Woo-hoo.
2 weeks and counting. ICBMs. Gaetz out. Bondi in. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm your host, John, and this is my co-host, Dave. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great. I hope I'm coming through okay. I see a little bit of a lag. You tell me if that's what you see.
Oh, I see a little bit of a lag, but and a little echo. But hey, you know what? We'll deal with it. You're here.
It's like all those, remember those kung fu films? Like, you know, when you were growing up? It's like that.
Yeah, the words don't necessarily meet the actions over there. In case anyone needs more poo to dislike Kamala Harris admitted to law school through Adverse Experiences Program. Vice President Kamala Harris is admitted to law school through University Legal Education Opportunity Program for students with educational disadvantages, economic hardships, or disability. Yeah, it's tough growing up with two professors as your parents and all that money and everything else, and the privilege and, you know, the ancestors of slave owners and all that stuff. But yeah, you know what? She's the past. Thank God.
She had such a rough upbringing. so tough, and we would have had it so much tougher if the unthinkable had happened. Thank goodness we dodged that missile. Oh,
speaking of missiles, Dave, there's a lot going on over in Ukraine. That was an unexpected toss to me there, but nicely.
Like that was
yeah.
Yeah. Was that a ICU? I can't think of the BM part, but anyways. Yeah. So I will tell you, John, admittedly, I have been a little bit screen and news dark for the last few days. So I'm kind of excited to see what you've teed up because I'm a little bit in the dark. I've been catching a few headlines here and there and reading a little deeper into one or two things, but outside of that, I feel like I'm a little bit behind.
Well, call me skeptical, but there are some things that are happening right now over in Ukraine. Russia said, you know, they obviously put out the red line. Don't cross this red line. Do not allow NATO weapons to be fired into Russia. If you do, then we will in fact be at war with Russia and NATO, which they went ahead and did. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much more patient Vladimir Putin can be. Again, we're not apologists for Vladimir Putin, but you know, there are lines, and he's asked for those lines. But I think I want to hear really quickly. We're going to come back to the ICBM thing. Yeah. We're going to come back real quickly, but I want you to hear from RFK Jr., his take. And by the way, this is a little bit long, but it's worth it. So pay attention. We're going to come back to him. We will kind of recap a couple of these pieces, but take a listen.
A war that should have never happened. It's a war the Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed, get a trapped market. In March of 2022, we committed $113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden's asking for another $60 billion. But the big expenses are going to come after the war, when we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry, it's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry, it's not a gift to Ukraine, it's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that that loan's ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on them? Number one, an extreme austerity program, so that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. In Ukraine, there's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainian kids, have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about this loan condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, and black against white, and all these divisions that they sow. If you like this video.
All right. So just to recap, BlackRock. You know, one thing that's really important to note here, and people will tell you, well, BlackRock doesn't really own those companies. They own a piece of those companies because they are an asset manager. The realistic story, or the real side of that story, is they own a controlling share. So in essence, they do control those companies. They do own those companies. And so if you are a defense contractor, you benefit from the war. And so does BlackRock. If you are a agricultural DuPont, Monsanto, and we go to war, or at least we help facilitate a war in Ukraine, then who benefits ultimately? BlackRock. You know, it all comes down to BlackRock, and then BlackRock keeps this fight going. Why do you think this fight isn't over yet? It should have been over within the first couple months. There is a benefit to keep spending the money and to keep building these contracts. Now, if you didn't catch it in the very beginning, and I know Robert Kennedy Jr. sometime is hard to understand, but what he said in the very beginning, why do they want more NATO countries? Because as soon as you flip the switch and you become a NATO country, now you have to upgrade all of your weapon systems to meet the NATO standard. And again, all of those defense contractors are the beneficiary of those contracts.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine that there's a private entity with a financial gain to make both on the front end of the war and the back end of the war, and having an incredible amount of lobbying power, not wanting the war to end. Like, Ukraine's got to win at all costs. Whether they win or not doesn't matter. But the longer this goes on, the more money that can be spent fighting this war, the richer and richer some of these few people can become at our expense.
Yeah. So one of the things that happened this last week was that Russia fired a modified ICBM that can be nuclear tipped. This time it was not. They used conventional. The scary part about this, twofold. You've heard on the news that it's a supersonic or a hypersonic missile. It wasn't. Not in what the rest of the world has been calling hypersonic. However, this thing goes up into the air. It ends up deploying its warheads, and in this case, multiple warheads up to 14. And then those warheads are individually targeted, pinpoint accuracy. And then those warheads re-entry and obviously hit their targets. The biggest scary part here was that they didn't see it coming. With all of the Western sensors and capabilities, they didn't see this one coming. And or at least that's the news. That's what they're telling you. So Putin not only did it once, he did it a second time. He launched 2 of these bad boys. And what he's saying by launching these modified ICBMs was that these are conventionally tipped. They could just as easily been nuclear tipped. I mean, it's literally an easy change out to do. The other thing is this particular weapon system was thought to have been mothballed, and obviously it's not. It's the RS-26, and I can't even pronounce the name of it, but they thought that they had mothballed this back in 2017, but they did not, obviously. So that's a scary thing. And it's also Putin saying, look, I don't want to do this, but I have the capability and you can't stop me.
Yeah. It's how many times have we heard, oh, he's wasted all of his good armament. He has nothing left. He's out of missiles. He's out of people. Everyone's fleeing. No one wants to fight. He doesn't have any weapons. And he doesn't have to answer every one of those, right? He just says, please stop. Okay, if you don't stop, I just want you to know, by the way, we have the ability to stop you. You should pause and think about your next move. And again, as you said earlier, not an apologist for Putin. I'm not foolish enough to think that he doesn't have other agenda items, but he has wanted for this the war to stop in Ukraine for years now. I mean, what are we going on? It's more than a couple of years now, right? He's been wanting this to end for a while, and it's the West that wants it to continue to go. And it's at the expense of his children and of Ukraine's children. It's horrible.
Well, and those people that think that Putin is losing, there's a report out on a site called The War Zone. Ukraine has lost nearly half the territory it captured in Russia. So that's not going well for them. That's not going well for Ukraine. And it's not going to. Here's what's interesting. Well, this week, Putin came out and said, I am ready and anxious to negotiate peace. Zelensky said, I'm ready and anxious to negotiate peace. And both of them put a condition on it that it be negotiated by Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump. So that's an interesting side note there. I'm anxious to see those all get into a room and hopefully negotiate some peace.
Yeah, by the way, it's a peaceful transfer of power. Of course it'll be a peaceful transfer of power. Hold on a second. Can we start World War III now? Can we get that thing kicked off between now and let's call January 6th?
Yeah. And to McGill's point here, I didn't bring any of it up because there's just so much out there, but the war in Israel is still going. I mean, not just still going, it's going hot. And, more and more people are saying that if you supply weaponry to Israel, then you're going to be cut off. Well, I hate to say it, but this part's biblical too. They're going to be surrounded and they're going to be cut off and they're still going to win. So there's that. I do have a little bit of video to show you. Sorry, let me pull this one up while we're going through this.
And while you're pulling that up, I thought I read that it was it yesterday that 250 rockets were fired into Israel again. I know this happens every day, and some of them splashed down near Tel Aviv. That's what I thought I read.
Yeah, it could have been. You know what? I do have one more on Russia that I want to throw up there before we move on. If you will just bear with me for a second. This is a pretty good description of what was sent over there. Takes me just
while you're bringing that up, John, you mentioned money earlier, or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. mentioned money earlier. The Biden administration is already moving to forgive $4.7 billion of one of the most recent loans. So we loaned you I don't know how many billions of dollars, a couple $100 billion. We're going to go ahead and start forgiving some of that. Really?
Yeah, I think that's going to be stopped. But anyway, here you go.
Top speed. That's okay.
There's your multiple warheads. That would be scary to see them raining down like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Especially if you didn't detect them, you had no idea they were coming. It was a complete surprise. And
Yeah.
then you don't know what the payload is.
So my understanding is that there was a phone call made to Washington that said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to do this. Don't nuke us because we're these are conventional." But I think that's it's commendable that they at least they didn't blow each other up, although that could have happened.
Yeah, very easily.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just going to pull up this video. There were some people not so happy about what happened over in or what's going on over in Israel, except unfortunately, the folks up in Canada are voting on the wrong side. Did you hear about this?
Oh, I did. Montreal, right?
Yep.
Police in
Yeah.
Quebec made 3 arrests at a pro-Palestinian and anti-NATO protest in Montreal. The demonstration took place while the city hosts the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Linda Ward has the latest.
We know these are pro-Palestinian protesters acting in solidarity with those in Gaza, acting against NATO, mainly students. A number of protest groups have been named in this. NATO, they say in interviews that they've been doing from the crowd there, they say is complicit in supporting Israel's war on Gaza. This as 300 delegates from NATO countries are in Montreal for meetings for the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. This protest last night, though, turned violent quite quickly. Montreal police say demonstrators were throwing objects at police, lighting vehicles on fire, breaking windows. Around 4:30 p.m., we have a map we can show you just how they started moving through the streets of Montreal. The crowd gathering at Place Émilie Gamelin. Around 5 o'clock, the group met another demonstration near Place des Arts, and then around 6 p.m. they began marching together. And this is when they say that they lit what appeared to be an effigy of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on fire. They were throwing smoke bombs, metal barriers were being torn down and thrown into the road. Fireworks were set off in the street. They were smashing the windows of businesses as well as the windows of the Palais des Congrès, where the NATO meeting is taking place, the convention center there in Montreal. And police say that several police officers were assaulted during these protests. At about 6:40, they used what they call chemical irritants and other techniques to disperse the crowd. Vehicles were then lit on fire. About 7 o'clock, the whole crowd was dispersed. But that is when police said that they made 3 arrests, some for assaulting those police officers, as I mentioned, and others for allegedly obstructing police work.
I love that, allegedly.
Allegedly, it was mostly peaceful protest. Hey, I'm curious, were any of those protesters, did they have their bank accounts frozen? Did they have their livelihoods taken away from them? I'm just wondering, and only 3 got arrested, but clearly it's a much bigger crowd. I'm just thinking about that protest, mostly peaceful, compared to the trucker protest a few years back where they had bouncy houses and barbecues.
Yeah, so Dave's referring to the protest in Canada that had truckers coming in and doing a major blockade, and they were arrested. Their bank accounts were frozen. They were not allowed to eat anymore because they cut down, or they shut down all of the vendors that were bringing in food. People were trying to bring pizza deliveries. They arrested those people that were bringing in pizza deliveries. It was, they don't like that kind of protest, but this kind of protests are totally fine with break windows, do damage, shoot rockets at the police officers, do whatever you got to do, get your point across.
You know where Trudeau was?
Well, Trudeau's in a lot of trouble. I don't know if you've heard about that. Trudeau has been getting an awful lot of fire, and people, I know we've heard it before, but people now are very fed up with him.
Yeah, he was at a Taylor Swift concert, kind of rocking.
Right.
Yeah. He could have, yeah. It's priorities.
And he was getting booed in protests there.
Shocking.
Listen, I think that'd be a good time. We're gonna transition over to domestic here in just a second, but I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Steel Rebel Design. Steel Rebel Design does all of the hats, shirts, cups, mugs, hoodies, you name it. They do it for us here at the Just Our Take Show. There's a link down below. If you want to see in the description, you can see, just click on the merch and it'll take you to their store. You can get one of our shirts or hats or cups or mugs, you name it. They got it there. And if you need some for yourself, get a hold of Kim at Steel Rebel Design and they will take good care of you there. Thank you again, Steel Rebel Design, for designing it or helping us design the shirts and putting all of those out. We love them. We're happy about them, and we really appreciate you. Thank you again, Steel Rebel Design. So, have you heard about the cabinet picks?
We've got a Treasury Secretary pick that seems fairly controversial.
Well, we have an entire gaggle. The entire top 15 have been brought into play, and so we're going to go ahead and take a look at those real quick.
I like that word, by the way, gaggle.
The gaggle. Well, here you go.
Filling his cabinet in near record time. It's a very stark difference from what happened last time when he was set to take office.
Madeline Rivera is in the nation's capital with more on Trump's new team. Madeline.
Hi, guys. Good morning. President-elect Trump rounded out the top 15 positions within his cabinet with this announcement last night. He chose former White House aide Brooke Rollins to lead the Department of Agriculture. In a post on X, Rollins wrote, in part, "It will be the honor of my life to fight for America's farmers and our nation's agricultural communities. This is big stuff for a small-town AG girl from Glen Rose, Texas." As a refresher, some of Trump's other high-profile nominees include Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, veteran and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services, Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary, and former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi for AG. Moving forward to the confirmation process on Capitol Hill, the appropriate Senate committees will review the backgrounds of the candidates, and generally, the committees will have hearings on the nominations where the nominees will testify. The committees will then vote on whether to send the nomination to the full Senate. A nominee needs a simple majority of the senators who are present and are voting in order to be confirmed. Some of Trump's choices are expected to be highly scrutinized. Still, rejections are rare.
But yeah, it's filling out really quickly. And Axios is bringing up a really interesting point about these picks. They're saying that these picks actually resemble more of like a European-style coalition government. Here's a headline from that piece called, the title of the piece is "Behind the Curtain, Trump's liberal cabinet." I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but here's what they say. They say, lost in the noise of Trump's most controversial picks is the simple, undebatable fact that this might be the most ideologically diverse cabinet of modern times. As Axios' Zachary Basu told you, Trump's cabinet increasingly resembles a European-style coalition government staffed with a dizzying array of ideological rivals united for now by grand MAGA vision. With so many of these picks.
Well, I think the piece is emphasizing like ideologically or political diversity and difference. And I think that's true. But again, I look at the wall, I look at the nominees, and I just see a lot of people who are clearly independent thinkers. People who are not afraid to speak their mind, to have an independent thought, maybe to buck the trend. And I just think that's very good. I think America would look at this wall and see the independence of thought more than they would see, whatever, the team of rivals or, can this hold together and all that. I just think they're seeing people who aren't afraid to question the status quo, maybe to upend the status quo. Maybe they don't all agree. But that's what the election was about to me. I mean, that's, Joe Rogan kind of fits in that. These are all people who would be interesting on Joe Rogan because they're willing to speak their minds.
Now, Donald Trump has never been afraid to talk to anybody or listen to anybody. He's always trying to get smart people's opinions on different things. And one of the things that he talks about is, he wants to put RFK Jr. in charge of health issues and food issues, but he's not going to let him touch the oil drilling operation.
He's right next to Doug Burgum on our wall. Yeah. And Trump's like, I'm okay with those two guys right next to each other.
Because he's not going to let RFK make any decisions about getting the liquid gold out of the ground.
Yeah. So, he's got a cabinet. I was happy with the first half of his picks. I can tell you that the picks that came out over this weekend, I'm very concerned. Very concerned. Look, I know that you need, I think that Abraham Lincoln brought in a cabinet of rivals, he said. But that Dr. Jeanette Neshawat, I'm sure I butchered the name. I apologize. I'm a little bit concerned about that. Now she's Surgeon General. She's the pick for Surgeon General. She's qualified to be a Surgeon General. She is a true doctor. She's been a strong communicator for preventative medicine and public health. However, she was a fierce advocate of mask mandates. She was a fierce advocate of lockdowns. She was a fierce advocate of the vaccines as well as the multiple boosters. And then she was a fierce advocate of and publicly was thanking Facebook for censoring people that spoke out against any of these things. I have a huge issue with that. I have issue with a couple of others, but I thought I would toss that one to you first.
Yeah, I mean those are all legit concerns. I'll tell you openly, I have to dig a little deeper into some of these. That's one that caught my eye too, and I heard your commentary. It goes against what Trump has said that he supports, which is it's your choice. Or we may recommend this, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's your constitutional right to decide if you're going to adopt it or not, meaning take an experimental vaccine or wear a mask or any of those types of things. So it's surprising, and especially his points of view around our First Amendment and how to protect it. So it is surprising, and I think we need to learn more. Has something changed, or are those still her ideological views?
Well, the only thing I can say is that Donald Trump has been very vocal about his support for RFK Jr.
Right.
Obviously, these two would go head to head on those two opinions. Pat Ast is the Interior Secretary yet picked. Yes, he's chosen Doug Burgum from North Dakota. Governor, actually, Doug Burgum from North Dakota. So look, I'm concerned about that one. There's a couple others on health, CDC, and things that I'm again a little concerned about. I do want to throw this one out. Let's see. So let's go to Pam Bondi real quick, because Pam Bondi, I think if you look at it, you say, okay, so Donald Trump said Gaetz. I told you up front, I thought that Gaetz was the sacrificial lamb. I thought that he put her in there because, or put Gaetz in there because he knew that Gaetz was a lightning rod and would draw some of the fire from some of his other picks. So he comes out with Bondi, and the initial response from those people on the left were, "Oh, you thought Gaetz was bad. She's even worse."
These criminals made one very big mistake. They wound up in Polk County. And I'll tell you, it's bad enough in one thing to profit from poisoning others, but it's another when you bring drugs from Mexico into our country, California, Texas, Georgia, and end up in our state and do it with impunity. Because when you're in this country illegally and you're doing things illegally, I want to tell you, and you wind up in Polk County, Grady Judd is going to find you. The DEA is going to help them. And my statewide prosecutors are going to lock you up for as long as we can. And each of these defendants are looking at 30 years in Florida State Prison for conspiracy to traffic drugs.
And one more.
She is awesome, by the way.
Senator, you heard our answer regarding that yesterday, but it is very interesting that he said he never spoke to his son about overseas dealings. His son said different things. Joe Biden was the point man for Ukraine, investigating at the time Ukrainians were a corrupt company, Burisma, and Zlochevsky, its owner, an oligarch who by all media accounts we've discussed was extremely corrupt. Hunter Biden is paid $83,000 a month to sit on that board with no experience in energy, no experience in the Ukraine, doesn't speak the language, and we clearly know that he had a very fancy job description, and he did none of those things. He attended 1 or 2 board meetings, one in Monaco, and then he went on a fishing trip with Joe Biden's family in Norway. The entire time, Joe Biden knows that this oligarch is corrupt. Everyone knows that. There are news reports everywhere. No one will dispute that. In fact, it raised eyebrows worldwide. But the vice president, by his account, never once asked his son to leave the board. We wouldn't be sitting here if he did. He never asked his son to leave the board. Instead, he started investigating the prosecutor who was going after Burisma and this corrupt oligarch who they say was corrupt even by oligarch standards.
I'm going to leave it there. So that obviously was Pam Bondi defending Donald Trump in the impeachment trial.
Yeah, she's great. And by the way, Gaetz has come out. He was on with Charlie Kirk. And in that conversation, he said, yeah, he was excited about it. He was enjoying the process. But you know what? This is the right choice. And he has still a very big role to play because not everyone is a role. There are lots of roles. And he said, I will play an important role in this upcoming cabinet, not cabinet, I can't think of the word for it, but he's going to play an important role, which means he's part of the group, which is good. And I like for him to be there. But I do think she has a lot more respect. She's much harder to tear down. And the comments by the lefties was, oh no, this is a terrible pick because, quote, she's competent. Yeah.
Well, I've got something to share with you this one causes great pause for me. However, if you would all pause for just a second and hit that thumbs up, that would be awesome. Right down below here, just hit the thumbs up and let everybody in Rumble Mania know that we are here. So when you do that, when you hit the thumbs up, that's the algorithm, or that triggers the algorithm to tell people that we are here. So we appreciate you doing that. So let me just share this one with you because this one kind of has my blood boiling a bit. This is Pam Bondi having a little sit down with Donald Trump talking about gun control.
Act, and it's weak, and it's about 1,000 pages long, and I've had my Solicitor General on it for 3 days now, working on it. We're rewriting it along with Governor Scott, who's you're going to meet with him. He's going to give you a ton of good information. We've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves.
Which you can't do right now.
Well, because without being adjudicated. So because they're a danger to themselves.
You want them to take the guns and
when they are
not go through 6 months of legal trials and everything.
Exactly. But we also have to give the mentally ill the due process in which they deserve, President. So what we're doing is they're going to be able to take the guns when they're taken into custody or into the hospital. And then when they're released within 24 hours or 72 hours later, typically it's 24 hours, but law enforcement will have 72 hours to determine whether they should give those guns back or they can go to a judge and say, Your Honor, please keep these guns. We feel this person is still a danger to himself or others.
So this would not have worked the way it's currently constituted. This would not have worked with Cruz.
It's called the Baker Act, but it's our Civil Commitment Act, and it's weak, and it's about 1,000 pages long. And I've had my
So there you go. So what we're telling you is that we're going to take away your guns without due process. She keeps on throwing in there, you get the due process. But basically, if my next door neighbor doesn't like me, and this has been brought up across the country, my next door neighbor doesn't like me, he knows that I have guns. He says, well, let's see if we can't just mess with him. John's unstable. He's out of control. He threatened me. So they come in and they put me on a 72-hour hold. And because of that, they've now been licensed to take away all of my guns. Now, in some cases, those guns happen to get lost in the system. They never come, even if you've been adjudicated to be completely healthy, no problems, no issues. I'm sorry, we got in the evidence room and then somehow we lost them.
It's
and
so
then
crazy.
they end up getting destroyed.
It's so crazy in there. John, I feel like I need to do a little bit more homework about even just that interaction between Bondi and and Trump. Face value, I'm not. So by the way, the example you used where your neighbor says, John, I'm not happy because when you mowed your lawn, your grass trimmings ended up on my side, and here's how I'm going to get back at you.
That would not trigger it, David. You have to go out there and actively lie to the police and tell them, while he was mowing his lawn, he pulled a gun on me. What did his gun look like? It was black.
Yeah,
that's all you
need to know. And right, so and by the way, I'm not arguing that it can't happen. I'm saying I feel like the intent. I get what practice could be. I feel like the intent is to say there are people that are not, they're not in good control of their mental faculties, and should they also then have loaded weapons in their hands or access to loaded weapons. So I feel like there is, and by the way, you know the gun laws much better than I do. If I have some mental instability, can I have my guns taken away from me today? If I'm mentally unstable?
If you are adjudicated to be mentally unstable, yes.
Okay, so you're saying
they're saying they're going to take your guns before you have been adjudicated as mentally unstable. Not okay.
Then I misunderstood. I thought what I heard was there's a due process. If you're adjudicated, then there are weapons removed.
So that's exactly what she wants it to sound like. And there are some, they call these the red flag laws. So if you want to do some research, the red flag laws, there are some of them throughout the country. And one of the things that they try to do is make it sound like, oh yeah, it's fully on the up and up. We make sure that they are adjudicated unsafe to have weapons. And the problem is, as soon as you are accused and they put you on that 72-hour hold, then they come in and they take your guns. They don't wait for you to be adjudicated as mentally unstable.
Yeah.
All you have to have
so I agree with you, that would be a problem.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I agree with you. That would be a problem. It's in my mind, it's no different than your neighbor or some acquaintance accusing you of some heinous crime, and with very little actual evidence. Maybe it's all circumstantial or it's all eyewitness testimony. Suddenly now you've got to defend yourself in court and just the entire process. It's horrible that it happens. I imagine it could happen here as well. And that would be a problem.
Well, it's like anything else. It's like anything else. In order to take away a God-given right, they better go to the mat to figure out if they can do it first. My biggest concern is not whether, because I honestly didn't check to see whether that law passed in Florida or not. But my biggest concern is that that's a mindset of hers, and that it didn't seem to me like Trump was opposed to it. Now, I would imagine that a good attorney general or some good legal minds around him could tell him, yeah, it's probably not going to pass muster.
Yeah. I'd also say, John, not to say that it wouldn't come up or couldn't come up, because that would be naive, but just given the amount of things to work on first, it feels like when you have to start prioritizing, that is not going to make the top 20 issues or even the top 30 issues. I don't know that becomes an important thing to talk about first. There's so many other priorities right now.
If it's a mindset and that's how that cabinet wants to go, it's not okay. It's not okay because if they're going to be flippant about the Second Amendment, then they'll be flippant about the first. The first is defended by the second. Agree.
My comment, I had two comments. The first one is I need to learn more about what the end. First off, what was the end state? What happened after that conversation? Did the law pass? If it's passed, how is it being implemented? What have we learned? So I feel like that's some good background to understand. But the second thing is, and I'll stand by this, the number of important critical issues that are ahead of her first, and those I've heard her speak on also, I'm very confident she's the right person for the job. And I think that she will probably get more done, has more credibility, and maybe even feared a little bit more than Gaetz was.
I would like to know more about her stance on a God-given right versus a privilege. Again, she's done great things. I applaud her on many occasions, but This one brought great pause for me, and it's not just about the Second Amendment. It's about how does she feel about all the other amendments that, again, we believe are handed to us by God, and they're protected from the government. So enough of that. Let's move on. I want to talk about the Secretary of Treasury pick.
Well, let's
Elect
talk
Trump
about
making
this
a
one.
crucial cabinet choice, nominating Scott Bessent as his new Treasury Secretary. If confirmed, Bessent has a tough job ahead of him as U.S. national debt surpassed $36 trillion for the first time in the nation's history. Former Assistant Treasury Secretary Monica Crowley is a personal friend of Bessent. She joins us now. Monica, it's great to see you. So this is a pick we've been waiting for. Treasury, it's our money. It's a big deal. You served in Treasury for 2 years under Trump. You know Scott Bessent personally. What do you think he's going to do? What's his priority as the Treasury Secretary?
Well, good morning to you, Brian, and I could not be more thrilled to see my friend Scott Bessent appointed by President Trump to be Treasury Secretary. Scott is absolutely brilliant. He knows capital markets better than anybody, and he's also fully supportive of President Trump's pro-growth economic agenda, as well as his tariff and trade agenda, which was a critical element in his selection. He's been a top advisor to President Trump on economic now for quite a while. The president likes him. He trusts him. He has full confidence in him to be an outstanding steward of the U.S. economy. So there's going to be a two-track approach to this, Brian. First is going to be economic growth, which President Trump delivered once before through a pro-growth economic strategy of tax cuts, regulatory relief, unleashing our great energy sector, and fairer trade deals. So all of those things are going to kick in, as well as his new and creative policies of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security benefits, and other elements of this pro-growth economic approach.
I'm going to let you have this one first, Dave. I'm sure you've read a little bit about the guy.
Well, just a little bit. The thing well, okay, first, I'm going to pull all the way out before I talk about Scott. Our economy, I don't care what the Dow does tomorrow or what it did Friday. We're in bad shape. And it's a veneer on the top that makes it feel good, but underneath it's rotten. And that $36 trillion in debt is generating $1 trillion interest payment annually. That's like 20% of the taxes, all taxes that are collected. We're in trouble. And to fix this, it's going to require some incredible genius, hacking the government down to a much smaller piece, figuring out how to live within our means. It's going to probably mean tariffs. I don't know how we get past this without collapsing, but we need to. And so hopefully Scott has some ideas that help us get there. But so the job is monumental. Now that's on the job is monumental side. He, I believe, keep me honest here, is a former Soros.
He's an asset manager for Soros.
Say that again. He's a what?
He was an asset manager for Soros.
Asset manager. Yeah, he was an asset manager for Soros. Now, I don't know. I don't know what that means. Are you close to Soros? Are you with Soros? I don't know, but I will say this. Almost everything Soros touches, it's kind of like the opposite of the Midas touch. The Midas touched something and turned to gold. Soros touches something and he kills it, right? He's like the Grim Reaper. He just destroys it. And his goal is to destroy the United States. He said so in the past. And now Scott, who was a former associate or asset manager for Soros, is there some connection there? Is there something there, or is it just, are you guilty by association in this case here? And it's hard for us to forget to not think that that's going to influence how you make decisions. I don't know.
It certainly scares people. I mean, that was enough to scare some people about Tulsi, and it still has me with a little bit of pause for Tulsi. However, yeah, that's a great question. How former is he? Well, he was in the first administration, so Trump knows this guy. It's not like some unknown for him. He didn't just pick somebody out of thin air. He was in the first administration. I think he was in Treasury, probably one of the lower rings in Treasury. So, I don't know. But you've also got the Doge, which I really believe, and if you watch closely, Elon has become a very close, trusted ally for Trump. And if what if we're to believe about Vivek and Elon, they're going to clean up and really get down to the roots of this stuff. I sent you a meme over the last couple days, Dave, where
That's great.
somebody made a comment about Elon took 90% of the folks at Twitter out, and he comes back and says it was 80%, but close enough.
Well, it just goes to show you, right? And we talked about some of the inefficiencies he discovered there almost immediately. And with our U.S. government, especially the most glaring ones, like the is it the Pentagon? We talked about this. Pentagon, you know, we can't find $840 billion again. Shucks, shucks. They're not. Hopefully, they are able to uncover enough fat, which should be really easy, just to hack slash. It's going to be very uncomfortable. People are going to be uncomfortable, going to hate it. Lots of complaints, special interest, especially, right? Because there's a lot of money funneling into all these NGOs and little groups that are doing things that you and I are probably not aware of. All that, if all that money goes away, which it has to, the government shrinks to a much smaller piece where we can live within our means and start paying down on that 36+ trillion dollars worth of debt. Maybe we can start move forward in the right direction without collapsing on ourselves.
Now, don't hold me to this, but I understand that the current budget is like $2 trillion over.
Yes.
Right, $2 trillion over what we have coming in. So, again, let's get further in debt as we move along. No, that's just not doable. But I'm going to, trust but verify. I'm going to sit back and say, okay, there's a plan. Listen, there was a plan. I believe with all my heart that Gaetz was the Scaramucci effect, as we call it. He was put in there for a reason. He was there to try to distract, and I think that he did a great job of doing so. There are now some hints that he's going to be running for governor in the upcoming. He did say, now listen, the interesting thing, he won his last election. He resigned from the current.
Congress.
But he still could have walked right in and taken his seat. He said, I'm not going to be taking my seat. I will not join the upcoming Congress.
Yeah. Gaetz said, and that's the thing. He said he could just say, yeah, I changed my mind. I'm elected to the 19th Congress or 119th Congress, 19th Congress. I got it wrong.
Yeah, it's not even changing his mind. It didn't work out. I was elected. I'm going to be sworn in. He's not going to do it.
Nope. And he's very confident, very forward. I have an important role to play. So, okay, good. Yeah. And he
could also be nominated to the Senate seat or appointed to the Senate seat with Rubio's exit. So who knows? Listen, something's going to happen, and I sit back and watch. It'll be interesting.
By the way, it's not that important, but just important enough when people say Trump can't work with strong women, and then of course he's got all these incredibly strong, intelligent, very capable women that he's appointed and works with regularly. Scott Bessent, by the way, is an openly gay man, and I don't think most people would even think about it or care, or like we focus first on, because can this guy help us? But just as a point, even for Trump, like once again, it's more about, do I have the right person who has the right skill set to help this country and the right mindset? And but it just so happens, if people are keeping score, if you have a bingo card, you can scratch that one off.
Well, let me just jump back for 1 second. And one of the most obvious to me, for Surgeon General, why didn't you go with Ben Carson?
Yeah, why not? I thought that would be a great choice. Why not?
I don't get it. Ben Carson would have been a fantastic Surgeon General.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. That was a surprise for me too.
Well, Gaetz come out and said that the reason that he stepped down or out of it because he was being a distraction. There were about 5 or 6 people that had openly said they would never vote for him.
Right.
The investigation, as we said last week, there's no there there. The DOJ, the Biden DOJ, refused to bring charges against him. The Biden DOJ came out and openly said that the witnesses against him are not credible. It was a smear job, and they do that kind of stuff all the time. I think it was all part of a plan. And going back to Marie's question, why didn't he take a seat? Well, I don't know, but I don't think that seat is open yet. And it will be, but I don't think it's open yet.
The Senate seat is not open yet. Rubio's got to be confirmed. By the way, you played the clip last Wednesday, but Gaetz walking through the halls, and this guy's corrupt, and this guy's corrupt, and that guy's corrupt. I mean, listen, I love it. I love his crass, I got no fear attitude, but there's no question. I mean, some of those people are like, there's no way in hell I want that guy in the AG spot, because he knows and he'll have the authority to do something. No way. And that's why I don't think they can confirm him.
Yeah, I agree. I have a little piece here for you.
And Marie notes that MTG. Wait, hold on. My mouse is not working. MTG. Yeah, thank you. Demanded that if everyone going to release his stuff, they should release it on everyone. I agree. You want to, first off, there's nothing on Gaetz, right? It was all proved to be a big smear campaign. However, you want to release everything? We agree. We think that's a great idea. Where would you like to start?
Well, the Congress does have a slush fund that they use to pay out all of these accusers. I think what we should do is, I think that would be one of the things that would be fun to see if Elon would bust open and say, who are all the recipients and on behalf of who?
Yeah. By the way, if I'm paying for it, I want to know who's the perpetrator, who got paid.
All right. So, listen, we don't hope for bad things to happen to anybody, but if they're going to happen, sometimes there is, I don't know if you want to call it karma, but here's a little bit of it if that's what you believe in.
Poetic justice.
Finally, Brandon Somoza being led out of the Midtown South Precinct on West 35th Street this morning. Police say at about 2 a.m. Sunday, he robbed a 38-year-old woman in the hallway of her Hell's Kitchen apartment building. He allegedly grabbed her purse, cell phone, and bank cards, and also performed a lewd act. The victim is a Manhattan assistant DA. She was not injured. Police traced her stolen cell phone to a hotel on West 45th Street, which led them to believe the suspect is a migrant, and they were able to track him down. Somoza was arrested just last night. Police say he was using drugs on the street and had stolen items with him. Police believe he is part of Tren de Aragua. That's the Venezuelan gang that has preyed on people in Times Square and Central Park. Somoza is facing a number of counts, including sexually motivated robbery and burglary. He also has 6 prior arrests, all from this year on similar crimes. And he's believed to have arrived in the U.S. in February of 2023. In Lower Manhattan, Lauren Glassberg, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Wait, Tren de Aragua? Really? Another one?
Now, at the very beginning of that, you don't have to play the sound, but go all the way back to the beginning when they're dragging him out. Yeah, dirtbag. Go all the way back to the beginning of that video, John.
Okay, I'm working on it.
A little bit more. Yeah, right there, right? He's like, Cinco! That's not what he said, but I imagine in his mind, I've been arrested 4 times. It's the 5th time. Yeah, there it is. What do you think's going to happen next, homies? I will be out in about an hour. This guy has been arrested multiple times. I call it poetic justice. I don't want somebody to get hurt to make a point, but I also do think that maybe Alvin Bragg and Letitia James, they need to have some firsthand real life personal experiences so that they can now start to get out of their bubble, start to realize what it's like to be a citizen or a resident of this great state that is falling into a big piling heap.
Great point. They tracked his cell phone, but not the J6 bombers yet. Remember, we said this a few weeks ago that the FBI had said, "Oh, the phone company was not able to retrieve that data." And then the next day, the phone company came out and said, "Oh, we've got it.
We got it right here. It's right here, right over here."
Okay, you're supposed to be playing along with us right now.
Yeah.
Okay, got another one for you.
Wait, hold on.
It's happening.
Is this the right 6th arrest? I thought this was his 5th. Anyways, yes, I'm sure.
5-6 doesn't matter.
No, but that's the point, right? At some point, you got to say enough already.
All right, so here we go.
Whistles and drums.
You get the point. You get the point. So apparently, it was
Gaza nada. Gaza nada. No,
I don't think so. I think it was just Gaza. I don't think they were saying nada.
No more Gaza. No. Okay. Go ahead, John.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, the thing is that it's starting to heat up again. We're about to see these things, and I think you're going to see more and more of it. Could be wrong.
Yeah. We got a couple more weeks, so I think you're right.
So the screen's kind of small here. Let me see if I can't enhance this a little bit. All right. Let's go ahead and hear from Tulsi. Now, you've heard the accusations that Tulsi is just a Russian asset, right?
Yeah, she's a Russian asset.
Yeah. That started from none other than Hillary Clinton.
What? No.
Hillary Clinton came out and said, yeah, she's a Russian asset.
Wow.
And I think that we can kind of nail down exactly what caused her to start calling her a Russian asset. Here you go.
If you happen to challenge them, whether it be on COVID or it be on things like it, and this was I think this was the thing that caused Mitt Romney to call me a treasonous liar, was saying, hey, there are U.S. funded, DoD funded biolabs in Ukraine that should be secured because there's a war going on over there, and the last thing we or the world needs is anything going on in those biolabs being unleashed in a way that could pose a threat to people. That was seen as
but I should just say, you weren't guessing.
No,
you got that, or it was confirmed in any case, in a public exchange in the Senate between Marco Rubio of Florida, the sitting Republican senator, and Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State, who volunteered it on camera.
Yes.
So,
and it was on the DoD website talking about their long history of funding these biolabs, not only in Ukraine, but in many other countries.
Of course, because
around the world,
outside U.S. law. Right. So they can, and it's bioweapons research, obviously. But you were just, I don't even think you said that. You just said basically what the Undersecretary of State said.
There you go.
It's conspiracy theory. It's not real. It's a conspiracy. There was no biolabs in Ukraine. How many were there? 11 on the border?
34.
Oh,
just
34.
like 11.
Now, the funny part was, I don't know if you remember this, right after the Ukraine war broke out, and everyone's like, no, it's a conspiracy theory. I went to Google, and Google, the first thing that came up said something like, whatever. The first thing that came up said, this is misinformation. It's not true. There are none. And then like immediately after that, there was like, 50,000 references to the biolabs, articles written, the whole bit. I'm like, nice try.
Well, they did the same thing when there was a handful of things that Putin said before going into Ukraine. He goes, I want a buffer between a NATO state and Russia. Mm-hmm. And so having Ukraine turn to NATO or become a NATO member is completely unacceptable. The second thing he said was, I want those biolabs removed because that's just an absolute unacceptable hazard to my country. And then third, he said, I want to start the denazification. In other words, remove the Nazis from Ukraine. And people came out and said, oh, there's no Nazis. But then you go back 6 months before he said that, and all of the mainstream media was doing reports on Nazis in Ukraine. So they think you're stupid. They think you're stupid. Now, speaking of them thinking you're stupid, have you heard the latest? I don't have any clip on this or anything, but have you heard what Elon wants to buy next?
Oh, I have.
He wants to buy
MSXBC.
MSNBC. By the way, I think that it was Charlie Kirk or Elon Musk. Somebody renamed MSNBC to Must Sell Network Before Christmas.
Yeah, that was so great. Listen, I have an idea, John. I have an idea. So the question is, Rachel Maddow does one show a week, gets paid $25 million a year. Would you keep her? And I'm saying, yes, keep her. You keep her contract. And what you say is, look, from now on, you're not allowed to lie. If you lie, every single time you lie, it's $1 million fine. Now you're getting 25 million bucks for the year. Now, if you tell 25 lies tonight, you're at 0 for the year. And every lie you tell thereafter, you owe us $1 million bucks. That would just, like, her head would explode. That's what I think they should do. And then let
So
Joe
I think
Rogan
it's
come
interesting.
on and a few others.
I think it's really interesting, and quite frankly, he could just be playing the game to make some more news. He was also talking about buying Google Chrome, and so was the founder of, or the owner of, Rumble. Both of them are talking about buying Google Chrome because the Department of Justice has said that they have to break it up because now they have a monopoly on search. So we'll see what happens. But speaking of making heads explode, there's a report today, again from the war zone, and this one is, this was Gateway Pundit, and this was very credible. This one is going to make some heads explode. I'm not sure if you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
Here you go.
Look at the edge of my seat. Oh,
To remove transgender service members from military on day one via executive order. Now, if you say he can't do it by executive order, he already banned any new coming transgenders when he was in before, and then that was lifted when Biden came in. The way this would work is that he would sign an executive order on day one, and part of the reasoning is because there are let me pull up the report again so I don't boof this up. But the bottom line is he's not messing around. I think he's dead serious about this. Let's see. Hate to read, but I'm going to. The ban is expected to be wider ranging than a similar order made. No, I don't want to support. Made during his first term in office when Trump prevented transgender people from joining the armed forces, but allowed them already in service to keep their jobs. President Biden rescinded the order, but this time, even those with decades of service will be removed from their posts, according to sources. Donald Trump is planning an executive order that will remove them all. Let's see, there's a reason here that they assume that there's about 15,000 currently in place. And part of the reason is, here it is, persons with a history or diagnosis of gender dysphoria, including individuals with who the policies state may require substantial medical treatment, including medications and surgery, are disqualified from military service, except under limited circumstances. That was the order from previously. This one, however, you would receive a discharge from the military under medical purposes. It's interesting. I mean, that is absolutely going to cause some heads to spin, but listen, he's commander in chief.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so uncomfortable with what's happened with our military, with the extreme focus on DEI. And you've admonished me in the past for showing military uniforms that were made for pregnant ladies, and you admonished me for that, so I'll accept it. But I feel like we're worried. We're trying so hard to be diverse and inclusive, and we're not focused on, do we have an efficient, precise fighting machine to defend our country? I don't mean to regime change other countries. I mean to defend our country. To me, that should be our focus first, right? Good intelligence. Are we fit? Do we have the right people in the right places? And it's hard for me to then think, does somebody being transgender have, is that a limitation? But I understand if you say there is an ongoing medical need, and that ongoing medical need, does it interfere with the ability for that person to perform their duties? And if it does, then regardless of what that ongoing medical need is, you would have said the same thing. Okay, I can understand that. But I don't know, that one is going to land. That one's going to be a little tough, John.
So the reason, and I think you're going to find this from Pete Hegseth if he gets confirmed, he's already said, if it's not helping the lethality of our forces, then they don't need to be doing it. In fact, what they've done is they have lowered standards for women in combat roles or special forces. Now, if you can pass the original standards, listen, I'm not saying there's no women that can do it. There are women that can do it. But if you can pass the original standard, no reason not to. But if you need to create new standards for your DEI hires, regardless of what the reason is, then you are not enhancing the lethality of our military. You are degrading it.
Right. I agree. But this is where you and I, you admonished me, and you were like, David, there's plenty of roles in the military. And I agree with you. Plenty of roles in the military. And so therefore, you might not be the one to go on the front line and fight hand-to-hand combat. Your role might be different. Maybe you're the person who is, leading intelligence or flying the planes or something else that is incredibly important, but it might not be on the front line, going door to door looking for the bad guys. And I don't think it's wrong for us to think about it in those terms. But yeah, there will be some changes.
Yeah, there definitely will be some interesting changes. I had one more that I was going to throw at you here real quick. Let me see.
I was going to ask you, did you like the NPR clip I sent you earlier? I don't know if I don't have that handy here, but I wasn't sure.
I might be able to bring that one up.
I thought it was interesting because it just kind of, I was thinking about Doge when I listened to this. So let me see if I can find her name just so I don't butcher this. The new CEO for NPR, Catherine Mayer, Maher. So she was with Wikipedia for quite a while. And I believe it was a TED Talk she was doing. And so, John, if you can bring that up, that'd be awesome.
I'm working on it now, and I'm pretty sure.
Good.
And it's on X, so that helps us out a lot. It just needs to sync here real quick. You know how that works.
I do. Yeah. So anyways, she had a very interesting take on how we should think about the truth. And I thought she is the CEO for NPR, National Public Radio. Her points of view on the truth might differ with some of your opinions about the truth. And then I thought, I wonder if this is one of those that Elon and Vivek are going to, defund, because I don't think I'm comfortable with any of my tax dollars going to NPR anymore.
Yeah, in fact, they've already said to defund it. However, let's go ahead and see your video here. Sorry, I have to put it up on the stage.
But one of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done. But one of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles.
I'm just going to say.
Right? The truth is inconvenient. It gets in the way of us getting consensus. What we really should focus on is just getting consensus, not worrying about the truth.
More important. Consensus is much more important than truth.
The truth slows us down. It's a distraction. This is NPR. She's running National Public Radio. I mean, we've known for a while now that they are also carrying the water for the left, but my goodness, this is the CEO. Man, the truth is not that important.
Yeah.
No
well,
more
lots of
fun.
interesting things happening, David. I'm still waiting for the storm. I think the storm has yet to arrive. I do know that truth
It
please, I'd
arrived in
rather.
my city. It arrived in my city last week, John, but I know which storm you're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry. I was going to bring up some videos. I thought now it's a little too close to home, but there are some videos out there about tree after tree after tree coming down in the Pacific Northwest. And by the way, the flooding down in Oregon and California has been devastating as well. So have you seen FEMA, by the way?
No, not a single, nobody's even mentioned it. I asked somebody about it. I said, have anybody heard or seen a FEMA? No, crickets.
Have you seen your $750 check yet?
No, I need to go apply for that. I wonder if I get it.
Sorry.
John, I need more than $750, by the way. I didn't want to tell you what it cost to lift a tree off a house, but I could tell you it's a lot.
Yeah. Listen, I know that I speak on behalf of the entire viewing audience and say we're so grateful that you and your family are safe. And there's going to be an inconvenience for up to 6 months, maybe more, but you're safe. No one's hurt. And you're here to talk about it. So thank God for that.
That's right. I agree. Amen. Thank you, John.
Hey, fun show. It was a good time. Good time was had by all. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that thumbs up. You guys are doing great for us tonight. Appreciate it. If you're not following the show, we love to have you join us both Wednesdays and Sunday nights. So go ahead and hit that follow button. That would be awesome. Tell your friends about us as well. We've got some fun things coming up. Also, I don't know, but I have to tell you, with Thanksgiving coming up, there's a lot going on around here. I do, David, I know that you know about this, but I do a light show here for Christmas. And this year it's going to be at about 12,700 lights. It's all synchronized to music, and it is I started setting it up in October 1st, I think is when I started setting it up. I can tell you that I ran a successful test tonight. Everything's ready to go. It's all just down to the programming now. But that said, I am going to consult with David, and we're going to choose a nice video from our past, and we're going to run that on Wednesday night. I know that most people are either going to be traveling or entertaining guests for Thanksgiving, so probably be a limited audience anyway. I hate to do that because we love visiting with you, and we love getting your feedback as well as giving you some of the latest. But we're going to be I won't say dark. We'll still have something going for you, but it's not going to be live on Wednesday night.
Yes, but we will have a lot to give thanks about. I will tell you that. John, no question. Thank you. Thanks for the show tonight. I appreciate it. And looking forward to a great Thanksgiving this week.
Absolutely. Thanks to all the people here on Rumble, as well as the folks that have joined us on X. It's happy to see that we're still making a dent over there. So glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. We will absolutely see you guys on Sunday live. And until then, you guys have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We're going to leave the way we have the last few nights. And God bless you. And we will miss you.
What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we, the people, choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
we need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again? The sweet emotion raining all over me.
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
The people dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again.
Making black and blue.